All right, welcome everybody to the 22nd edition of Tequila Tuesday. Thanks for being here. Late notice, we'll have a little bit of a small crowd tonight because of the late notice, but I wanted to record this nonetheless. Those of you who are here, take yourself off mute. It's gonna be difficult, maybe not so difficult for me to man the chat tonight. You can pop your question in the chat if you want, but I kind of wanted to focus a little bit, at least, on this post that I made in Patreon last week about, so you want to be a VP of sales, and all of the questions that I put in there that you may or may not face going through that interview process. And I broke it up into 3 different LinkedIn posts and got a lot of interaction on it. A lot of people were like, oh, that's super helpful. A lot of people were like, oh, fuck that. I don't want to be a VP of sales. This is crazy. So that's kind of where I wanted to focus. So, pull up that post. I put the link to it in the calendar invite and posted it in Patreon. You can review that, and I'm happy to answer any questions, from there, and kind of off we go. Maybe we'll start with you, Jill, since before we started recording, you kind of chimed in and said you had a VP of sales interview coming up. So you want to take yourself off mute, Jill, and pick an area to start at?
Thank you. So I'm glad you're home and not braving the storm, and sorry that Janet is, but our game. So I think I mentioned in Thursday Night Sales that I had left my own company after 12 years, and so I'm looking for my next gig. So I've had 3 different interviews already as VP of sales, 1 to manage a team, and then 2 as individual contributors. And next week I have my 3rd interview with the company that I'm interested in. I turned down the first offer. It was just too small of a company with too many hats to wear. I guess I feel like after running my own gig and being in charge of finance and operations and sales and marketing, and wow. I'm ready to maybe just focus on sales for a little while and then maybe move into management again. But it's not really the driving force right now, as my youngest goes off to college in September, and I have all kinds of freedom that I haven't had before. So I feel like digging in and getting the right position feels like the right thing for me right now, till I figure out where I want to live and what I want to do and all that. So most jobs are remote still. Some have said, we're going to go back to HQ at some point, but they're not very definitive about it. So I'm not sure that really matters. I feel like the number one question I get is, why would you leave your own company? And so I virtually have the same story, which you told me, feel confident in your story. And my story is pretty much what I just said, that COVID has changed things. And, I'm ready to help another company benefit from my experience and success in running 3 companies and building them from 0 to 10 mil. And, that I have a lot to offer. But, it still seems to be maybe a small stumbling block that I haven't been in someone else's corporate culture, which I don't really know how it matters if you manage your own salespeople versus manage it for a company. But I just kind of wanted some guidance around that.
Okay.
I think growing and developing people is the same, regardless of their why, but maybe.
Well, they're not worried about that. They're worried about how well you'll play ball and follow instructions and do what you're told to do.
They should know I've never done that.
Well, that's
no, I'm
probably
kidding. I'm kidding.
That's probably what they're worried about, Jill.
Yeah.
No, honestly, that is probably what they're worried about. Like that.
Okay.
That's what that question means. That question means you're used to being the boss. You've been the boss for a long time. How do I know you're not going to argue with me and disagree with me and, be a pain in my neck, since you're not used to not being in charge.
Fair enough.
So keep that in the back of your mind as they send that, your way. So demonstrate like willingness to learn, coachability, desire and interest to go from 10 million to 50 million, an area that you've never been before, wanting to learn more about different parts of like the tech world or the startup world or fundraising, right? So just that humility and that humbleness that you don't know it all, that there's plenty for you to learn still. There's plenty for you to be enthusiastic and excited about. And that's why you're here. And your personal story of like, well, I wanted to move away from my own business for the following reasons. I think if you own that, I think that's a good answer, and that should be compelling.
Great. So frame the desire to learn and grow and have the benefit of their knowledge and information. Put that in the beginning parts of the question.
Frame your answers in humility and a growth kind of mindset, and talk about specifics. Say, listen, I've taken a couple of my own companies to 10 million, but that's it, and kind of petered out after that. I'm super interested in the process of how do we go from 10 to 25 to 50 to 100, right? And I'm excited to focus on just sales and building a sales team. You might even say all the other stuff associated with running your own business never felt like my sweet spot. And I'm at a stage in my life where I only want to focus on the things that I, enjoy the most. So wrapping the story around that desire to learn and lean into the things that you're already, passionate about and good at, I think that's the best you could do.
Awesome. Thank you. That's super helpful. I appreciate
it. If I could add a little something to Jill.
Sure.
Good to see you. Just having come from, big companies like that, and now on the on the opposite side, working for a small company, I think that if I was in your position looking to do the opposite, one of the things I would be looking forward to if I was, interviewing with a big company is the resources that they have to offer, the teams, the processes, the resources, and being able to focus on the fact that you have kind of bootstrapped and had to, develop all that yourself, where you didn't have the luxury of having the resources that the larger companies have, either in terms of their teams, their systems, or the processes.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it's true, so I appreciate that. These are really good insights. Thank you both.
Yeah. Jennifer, I saw you typed in a question. You want to take yourself off mute and ask it?
Hey, Scott.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. So what you wrote in your posts was incredible, and it's a lot. I mean, clearly it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I copy and pasted from LinkedIn, have it saved separately, kind of writing my own notes on it, journaling stuff out. But is there anything across those posts and that list, are there like top 3 things that you're really passionate about that are absolutely mandatory, or maybe not mandatory, but just things that you would look for that really make a successful BP? Because all of them, when I read them, scream important. It's just I'm trying to filter and go through, because there is so much.
Yeah. A little bit tricky to kind of stack rank them in terms of importance and priority, because they all kind of have their time in the sun, if you will, right? So at one point, data might be the most important thing. At another point, people might be the most important thing. At another point, the playbook stuff might be the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it depends on what type of company you're interviewing with and what size and what stage they're at. So if I'm interviewing at like a pre-Series A or Series A kind of company for a VP of sales job, probably the most important thing there is the stuff that I wrote around the playbook and the process, right? And the whole like step, that's like the sales motion. Like, how the hell are we going to sell this thing? Who are we going to sell it to? What's our messaging going to look like on the phone and over email?
Exploring PMF through that playbook.
Oh, product market fit. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Right. And just kind of proving that part out. And then I've got to scale it beyond me and my brain. So I got to get it onto paper so I can teach, you know, a circus full of people to sell this thing just as effectively. And that's the most important piece at that stage of the company. Right. And that's where I mentioned that stage because that's where I've lived and spent basically the entirety of my career. So once you do that, then you would move to the people. And that becomes the most important piece. It's like, who are those kind of anchor tenants, the first people that you hire? Can you teach them how to sell this, ramp them up appropriately, demonstrate that they can hit, you know, some modicum of whatever the quota is, right? Whatever the targets are that you put in front of them. Because if you can now scale yourself, meaning you'd be able to train some reps to generate significant revenue, now you're kind of off to the races. So you've got the messaging down, you've got the process down, and now you've got a few people, right? And so that's those, if you're asking me to pick like the two most important things, like that's the most important thing for me. If I was interviewing you, that I'd want to know. Yeah, I'd want to know, like, well, what's your plan around that, Jennifer? Right? Yeah. How are you going to hire a couple people? Where are they going to come from? How are you going to ensure that they don't shank and wash out? Are you bringing people with you that you've worked with before that, you know, you can kind of bank on a little bit, right? What's the pitch going to look like? Like, here's what we do. Tell me how you think that we would sell this. What's our go-to-market approach? Is it field sales? Is it inside sales? Is it a hybrid of the two? Do we have an SDR AE approach? What do you think about our price point? Does that work? And why? Should you bundle the packages? Should you do a per seat license? Is it a la carte on the features? Is it all, you know what I'm saying? Like, just that's all just like, how the hell do we sell this thing? Yeah. Those are the two most important things for that kind of company. So I'm going to focus my answer there because that's the stage that I like the most.
And and I've never heard this before and I never thought of it this way, but I think it's genius. How do I scale myself? Like, how do you essentially you clone yourself with the playbook? And I think what I've seen a lot more of is I'm coming in and, you know, I'm the team lead and I'll put something together, but I just want to hire people as fast as I can without iterating myself first. So that's a really interesting mind shift. And I like that.
That's, that would kind of fall under something that I call stage appropriate VP. There's a lot of people mishire their VP of sales for the particular stage. So, you know, if I'm an early stage Series A, pre-Series A kind of founder, I'm not trying to hire a VP of sales who's been at Salesforce for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
I need a stage appropriate VP who's going to go get in the mud and dig a ditch, right? Who's going to make cold calls, who's going to fail a million times, who's going to, you know, try their best to write the scripts and the email copy and build some initial reports maybe, and all, like, somebody who's been
their hands dirty.
Yeah,
I feel like it's Amy sometimes. I mean, that is essentially what Amy does, right? With fitting.
She helps companies find execs for the right stage. Right?
Yep.
So yeah, you got to be able to do that. And what's interesting about scaling yourself is, like, if you're the first person in, if you're Rambo and you're like parachuted into the jungle and you got to hack your way out, Then you
Yeah.
scale yourself in that first couple rep, hiring process and whatnot. But then you start to scale yourself because you add a sales ops or rev ops person. And then you add a sales manager layer or, 4, 5, 10 sales. I mean, you just keep scaling yourself. You just shed this particular skin and you got to clone yourself. I got to clone myself in terms of reps. I got to clone myself in terms of an ops person. I got to clone myself in terms of sales managers. I got to clone myself in terms of sales directors and leadership. And I got to clone myself in terms of sales trainers and coaches, because now I have 300 sales reps and a dozen sales managers, and I'm in fucking meetings 8 hours a day, and I can't do any of the work that I was so passionate about in the first place. So it's this constant evolution of finding new ways to scale yourself.
Did you find yourself losing less interest, maybe not momentum, but less interest as your team scaled?
Oh, 100%. Every single time. Every single time. Because if you're a true builder, like once you build something, you're like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Because
trying to move on.
Maintaining is not as exciting.
No.
It's just not as exciting. It's not as exciting for me to take your stock price from $15 to $17. It's just not. What's exciting is like, we have this idea that is nothing. Oh my God, we just closed like 5 customers. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my God, we just got our first couple reps to like hit quota, and they're like, thrilled and like, oh my gosh, we just hit $1 million in revenue. These are big milestones. So 100% for me, for somebody with my personality, the bigger we got, the less kind of enthusiasm I had behind the particular project, right? Because I started to feel like, well, my job here is kind of done,
Yeah.
Which is why I never worked someplace longer than 3 years and 1 month ever. Because I went in there to do a job. My job is to get you from 0 to 25. 2 to 3 years, I would do it. And I can't do it. Can't do it no more. For me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
100.
What else?
Thank you.
Yeah. Who else has questions? Could be about VP of sales stuff or anything else for that matter.
I got one.
Go ahead, Pat.
So when you were talking, you said that you were interviewing for a few roles that were like management focused and a few VPs of sales roles that were independent contributor type roles. I didn't know that existed. Is that like, what is the goal of the VP of sales if it's not to manage people and build out like a team?
It's called title inflation.
I can't really answer that because I was surprised too when I started down this process.
Can I answer it for you, Jill?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's title inflation. Is because they want somebody to go about selling and figuring out how to sell the product, okay? And they think you get more meetings and whatnot because you have a VP title, and they think they get a better salesperson because they're hiring somebody who comes with the VP title versus an AE title, right? So somebody looks at Jill or looks at me and it's like, okay, these people have, decade or two worth of sales experience. Like they've been successful before. Like they're gonna sell and do really, really well for us, right? What they fail to realize is like, I haven't been on the phones making 100 cold calls a day in like 20 years, nor do I want to do that. Right. So like my runway to dig a ditch, like I'll dig a ditch, but my runway is like super short, right? It's like once I get on the phones, build a pipeline and close a couple deals, I'm in the CEO's door knocking like, yo, I figured this out. I got to hire people. So the difference is if you take a role where they're like, you're going to be an individual contributor, you're a VP of sales, you're going to be in that individual contributor seat for a long time. Right. And that's not my definition of a VP of sales. That's just a big glorified AE with a bigger salary and a bigger title. That's not what I would want to sign up for. Right.
Yeah, so that's part of my questioning is understanding what the runway looks like. Because I agree, I won't have
Yeah,
interest in that for very long.
You got to, Jill, you got to be very, very direct and clear in terms of setting expectations around that. Like, how long do you expect me to be in this individual contributor chair? What milestones do you need to see hit, right? Do you just need to see a couple demos being set? Do you need to see 100K worth of pipeline? Do you need to see 100K worth of revenue, right? Like, if you don't spell that stuff out explicitly, you'll be in that VP / individual contributor chair for 6 to 12 months or longer. And you know, depending on who you are and what you like to do, like, that might not be the right move. Because if you're a builder and you want to build a team, that's not something I would sign up for, Pat or Jill. That's not what I'm trying to do. But if the CEO and founder said to me, listen, we want you to come in, we'll give you the VP of sales title, okay? But we need you to, you know, sell for a little bit first. I'd be like, yeah, I have to sell. I have to learn how to sell this thing. What I plan to do is build some pipeline, close a couple deals. And when I feel like I've got it, I'm going to communicate that to you. And then I need your blessing, the green light to, you know, start trying to hire a couple people. And then they're going to say, well, what do you mean? How many people? And that's where we go to some of those questions that I put in that post, which is like, you know, how many people, where they come from, when, all that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dustin. You got a question, Dustin?
Always got questions. Pleasure to be here. First night, so.
Welcome.
Yes, I know I hit you up on LinkedIn today, you know, interviewing, you know, for this small company. So it's kind of a unique situation. I think Jill, you know, mentioned one thing about kind of a similar scenario where this is a very small startup, got maybe like 15 employees. I knew the previous owners, have consulted for them. I've been in the GPS tracking industry for about 7 years, just kind of helping them out. So they introduced me to this new owner as of the end of last year. He comes from Uber, right? So I'm basically, you know, I've been helping him the last 3 months or so, just helping him out, you know, what he needs to be having an idea. And then of course he ends up asking me last week, he's like, how do I get you to come on board and lead my sales team, right? So now I'm in a position where I need to be asking the right questions, you know, before moving to a company where they don't have a product necessarily yet. They've got 2 sales guys. So the scenario is they're a B2C company and they want to start moving B2B, you know, because they've got a venture capitalist. So some questions I've thought of is, you know, looking towards what are the expectations of growth for the next 36 to 60 months, what their exit strategy is, vision, health of the company, knowing what I'm coming into, right? And I know I'll have at least 2 sales guys, you know, that I'll have to, you know,
Okay.
Manage from there. So we'll leave it from there.
Some of those questions, I would be very surprised if they give you an answer, and even more surprised if they gave you an answer that wasn't political bullshit. They're not going to tell you an exit strategy. They're all going to say, we don't really focus on the exit. We're trying to focus on building a really strong company. You know, will we IPO one day? Will we sell the bit? I don't know. They're not going to be straight up with you on that. So to me, like, I don't even know if it's worth asking that in the early part of the interview process. Maybe later on. And a better way to ask that question, in my opinion, is like, Dustin, I know you started a business and sold it before, right? What's your goal with this company? Because like, if we exit for a couple $100 million, like $1 million in my bank account is like life-changing to me. But 30 million to you is probably like fucking couch cushion money because you've already sold a business before and you're loaded. So like, that makes me think you have one goal, and that's selling for billions of dollars and hitting a home run. So talk to me about how you think about that kind of stuff. You see the difference there?
Yep.
So you want to try to find somebody that is like aligned with where you are in your stage, of life financially and that kind of stuff. If you ask them about, what's your goals like over the next 30, 60, 90 days or the next, 1, 2, 3 years, they're going to give you, the standard kind of answer. They're going to be like, well, I think that, we should be able to do $1 million in year one, and 5 million by the end of year two, and 10 million by the end of year three, and 25 by the end of year four. So that's not quite the right way to ask that question. So a better way to ask that question is like, what are your goals for this particular hire in the first 30, 60, 90 days or in the first year? Like, what are the things that you see needing to be done that you don't know how to do, and that's why you're hiring for this person? Is it headcount growth of some size? Is it strictly number of logos? Is it total revenue? Is it, building out a whole process? Like, give me specifics. They have to be able to give you something like that. And, you want to pay close attention, I think, to how realistic some of those numbers are. I had an interview one time and they had like 2-3 customers. So, a little bit of product market fit, maybe like 50K in ARR. And they're like, I think that we should be at 5 million by the end of the year after you're here. And I'm like, fuck off. Impossible. No way. Doesn't even matter if I actually think I could get to 5 million in year one. I am not signing myself up to work alongside somebody who tells me that we're going to get to 5 million in year one. No way. I'll have that battle over and over and over again and probably lose it. Imagine going from 0 to 3 million in the first year and being told you hit 60% of your target. No, that's how VPs have a 15-month life expectancy in whatever role they're in, because they don't think about that. So I want a founder to be like, okay, I think we could get to, 500K in year one, like 2.5 million in year two. And if we're lucky, like 5 to 10 somewhere by the end of year. Like, those are realistic numbers. Bigger numbers than that are insane for you to sign up for. And again, we're talking about a very small company, very early stage, right, Dustin?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is, like, your questions have good intentions, but they're off ever so slightly and like not specific enough. And you got to avoid the boring political answer and try to get some of the real juicy stuff.
That was questions given to me a couple hours ago by someone who was trying to give me advice. So apparently I need to reassess who my mentor is going to be.
Well, I don't know who that person is, but
That's why I reached out to you shortly after that.
Well, maybe they gave you an associate's degree and I just gave you a master's degree. So maybe we think of it that way, So again, those questions are on the right track. They're just not specific enough. You're going to get burnt if you only ask those questions. And candidly, if I'm interviewing you as a founder and you ask me those questions, I'm disappointed because I think you're basic. Like, these are standard questions. Like, somebody told this dude to ask these questions. These are boring, right? Yep. Like, where's the good stuff? Is that helpful? Did I help you, Dustin, or confuse you?
No, that definitely helps.
Okay.
I mean, I know my first thing going in is going to be to focus on, what's the main thing they need me to do, and what are you not good at, essentially.
Yeah.
At least give me those two to focus on. So, and then I do know a little bit as he shared with me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I had this other thought that's like, after they tell you some of those specifics about, targets and what they expect you to do because they're weak in particular areas, the next phase of that is like, what tools are you going to arm me with? How are you going to support me and enable me to get there? Right? That could be budget for bodies. That could be budget for tools. That could be budget in terms of internal resources that are going to help you do things like get leads and build, particular product features that the market is telling you, I ain't buying this without this particular feature, right? And if you're not going to get supported in these particular areas, and the founder has a stance of like, listen, your job is to sell this thing, go sell it. It is what it is. I'm not signing up for that. That tells me that if that's somebody who doesn't understand the business of sales and building a sales organization, right? And you're going to be in a world of pain before you know it, going to work for somebody like that. And I made that mistake. I can tell you about that world of pain. I got the scars to prove it. I learned from it and didn't make those same mistakes the last 3 times that I took on one of these gigs. So that's like the next level. It's like, how are you going to support me in getting there? How do you think about allocation of budget to the sales department? Are you going to give me $500K a year and I get to spend it how I want? Or do I have to go ask and create a dissertation every time I want to get, a particular tool? Am I going to have to argue with you for 3 weeks because I tell you we need to hire a couple SDRs? Right? Like, have these conversations up front so you learn about how these people think, so you understand what kind of battle you're going to have to go through once you're in there.
Thank you. I like it.
All right. What else we got?
Hey, I guess along those lines, like, does where the money comes from, like the investors, have anything to do with like those growth targets that you're just talking about? Or is that typically driven from like the existing leadership of the company?
Well, no, it absolutely has something to do with it, because particular investors are investing at different stages and need a different type of like exit, right? So like a seed stage investor, they might be happy with like 2 to 3x on their money. Whereas a growth stage investor who's investing in like leading rounds of like Series C or Series D, they don't care about anything except a massive, massive home run. That's it, right? So, you sign, good example, I'll use one of my companies as a good example, but like you take money from Tiger Capital, for example, that's home run only. That's multiple $1 billion only. So there's no exit coming unless you're in the multiples of billions, right? And so that means you're going to have big goals and big targets. And I can't remember who asked the question originally, but it was like aligning your financial goals with the founder's financial goals and whatnot. Like that's a clue potentially, right? That's a clue of like, how soon may we exit? How big do we have to go and how big do we have to get?
Hey, Scott, I have a question.
Sure thing, Lori.
So just so that I can learn, since you have all this knowledge and you've gone in and been a VP, what does it look like for you to learn the sales process, learn how to sell it, and then come up with your system and implement that? Like, do you have this? You obviously have a checklist from all of your experience.
Can you try to ask that again? I feel like I mostly know what you mean, but not exactly.
Well, maybe just give me concrete examples of companies where you've gone in as the VP and built up the sales program. And so then maybe in these 2 examples, you learned how to sell whatever it is, and then you built up the whole sales process.
Well,
what was that like?
You can look at my resume for the places that I worked, Lori, to look that up. But when you've done it enough times, the process is really the same. All that's changing is like what we're selling and who we're selling it to, right? But I have a list of like 20 essential things for the sales playbook. And this is the work that I do when I work as an advisor and I do my consulting gigs with companies. It's like, first thing I do is I send them this list of 20 things. And I'm like, here's what we need to build. If you've already built some of it, send it over to me so I can edit it and audit it. And off we go. So it's that exercise and that process that every VP of sales should do. Most companies and most VPs of sales don't do that and don't spend the time on that. So they show up and they're like, well, I got to justify my existence. So I need to start, calling and, hiring a couple people. And before you know it, like there's a couple people there and nobody really knows exactly what they're doing and what's the right way to do things. And a couple deals are happening, but nobody really totally knows why. And like, that's how you get to 1 or 2 million in revenue and then stall out because there's no repeatable process. So the key is, as early as possible, is to figure out what works and then codify it, put it down on paper, all these different areas, and then teach it to others, have them execute it. And that's how it works. And then you just scale. You go from 3 reps to 10 reps, from 10 reps to 20, from 20 reps to 40, onward and upward,
And
Scott,
have you
when did
found that, oh, sorry, the length of the sales cycle, how does that factor in, if at all?
Well, it factors into obviously how you sell it. Meaning what kind of messaging, what kind of cadences, and what kind of tone I take with my prospects. It determines our total addressable market. How many accounts can we sell to? So if you're selling to only Fortune 500 companies, you got 500 accounts. If you're selling to real estate agents, you got like 1.5 million realtors in the United States, and 200 to 300,000 of them leave the business every year and get replaced by a new crop. So you have an infinite number of people to call. So that will determine what the core kind of metrics look like, right? Enterprise sale, you don't need to make a bunch of calls. High velocity transactional sales, you got to make a lot of calls. The size of the team, how complex the rev ops, sales ops kind of team is, how many tools you might need, how many managers, how many layers between you and the frontline people, need to be there. All of this kind of stuff. Geographic considerations. I had a client I was on a call with today, and we were talking about how to get coverage of time zones and how to get coverage on the weekend. This is a company that's in the mortgage sector, and they're 24/7. And right now they have nobody working after 6 o'clock Central, and they have leads that sit from the West Coast. And then they have leads come in over the weekend that they don't touch until Monday. So we had conversations about coverage. We had conversations about satellite offices. We had conversations about remote work, adjusted, schedules and all these kind of things. There's a million things to think about. There's answers and solutions to all of them. You just attack them brick by brick, one by one. That's all.
Scott, when you're in your VP of sales role, how do you know when it's time to start scaling to a larger organization? If you're given full autonomy to hire as needed, how do you know when it's time to add more people?
Okay, I'll do like 3 phases probably. The first phase is like, can Scott figure out how to sell it? So once I figure out how to sell it, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this process is going to work, Brent. That's my first phase. In that first phase, my first phase is me. The second phase, we move to phase 2, is I hire 3 people. The mistake that most people make is they hire 1 person. They hire 1 seller. You hire 1 seller, that person's all alone on an island. That's it. They got nobody to share with. They got nobody to compete with. They got nobody to have fun with. They got nobody to vent with, right? And hiring for sales, as much as we all like to think that it's a science and we're really good at it, is a crapshoot. So you hire one person, that's not very good odds that you hired the right person. So hire 3 people. If you hire 3 people and you know what you're doing, one of them will be really good. One of them will be okay. Like they probably can hit quota sometimes, other times not. They probably won't be there for more than like 12 months, but they're okay. They're good enough for now. And that third person you need to throw out the building as fast as possible because they will fail. You need to learn who each of those 3 people are. So I also try to hire from like a couple different buckets. So like I might hire one enterprise person, one mid-market person, and one transactional person. I might hire one person with 2 years experience, one with 10 years experience, and one with 20 years experience. I'm trying to figure out like who is the right type of salesperson for this hire. So I'm going to get one of them right. One of them I'm going to be okay. And one of them I'm going to shank. Once those couple people that are good or okay have hit their numbers and built some pipeline, right? So in transactional, that's pretty quick. Mid-market, it's probably like a quarter or so. Enterprise, it could be, 6 to 9 months. But once they demonstrate success, I go to my boss and I'm like, listen, I think I got it. I got a couple people hitting. One of them super good. This other one, they got to go. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Here's why it failed. Now I go to phase 3. And phase 3 for me is I go from like the 2 or 3 hires to 10. I go to 10. When I get to 10, that's going to hopefully give me a steady state of like 4 or 5 reps who are pretty damn good. And that's my first anchor tenant. That's my first core of my sales organization. And those people will hopefully be with me for a couple of years. And
I appreciate it.
I go from there. That's the first 3 phases.
I appreciate it. I may be in that situation here in a minute, so it's good insight. Thank you.
Yeah. Which phase will you be in?
The first one.
Okay.
We have 2 people right now, one manager that potentially would report into me as the director. And they think we need to scale bigger, but they don't know. And that would be my first point of work if I step into this role.
There you go. So get yourself to sell it. Get yourself to a place where okay, I'm pretty sure this will work. If I did nothing but sell this thing all day, like I would crush my quota. This other person that we have, these other 2 people that we have, they're hitting. I think we got this. It's go time. Yeah.
Hey, Scott, quick question I have. I think, to Brent and others have mentioned this. I think it's pretty interesting to see that in sales primarily, it seems like even if you're at a smaller company, you typically come in as an individual contributor and you do well, you hit quota, and then they want to make you a manager and then a director and then a VP, for instance. How often do you see organic growth of that salesperson just taking on more responsibility versus you looking specifically for a VP of sales role at a different organization and coming in and just trying to figure everything out all together?
Never. Never will you go from being a SDR or an AE to working your way all the way up to being the sales leader. Never. It won't happen. They'll always top you off. I've got topped off multiple times. Some VC or some founder will always be like, ooh, Jessica, I'm going to pick on you because you're living in this world right now. This is like the 4th time you've written something that's like, oh shit, I'm terrified. I'm in this world. Yeah.
Sorry.
What's going to happen is at some point, Jessica is going to get to a particular place with her company and they're going to be like, you know what, Jessica, you've done great. But we're going to bring this guy Scott in because he's taking companies from 50 million to 100 million or whatever. That's a guarantee. Just accept it that it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Okay. The best thing you can do is hire your replacement. That's what you should do. That's the smartest move I ever made in my career. It's going to make me about $50 million. I'm dead serious. I failed at this 5 times. 5 times I had pride that I should have been the guy and they shouldn't have taught me off. They should have let me go all the way. They should have let me go the distance. And when they hired in my replacement, I would cheer when they failed. Pride, ego, stupidity. This last time, I saw that I felt like I was going to be done. I knew at some point that they were going to top me off because we were going to be a publicly traded company. And at some point they were going to bring somebody in. So I called my buddy and was like, listen, you've taken companies to a couple hundreds of millions of dollars before. You've worked at a publicly traded company. I'm going to hire you as VP of like enterprise sales or whatever. And I'm going to leave in about 12 months and I'm going to hand the keys to the Lamborghini over to you. And you're going to make us both rich. Don't fight it. So back to Hayden's question, Jessica. Sorry to pick on you, but I wanted to give you that. Back to your question, Hayden. It's not going to happen. They'll let you go to a particular level, okay? You certainly can go from SDR to AE to sales manager and probably even to director, okay? Depending on how long you stay there. But unless you're there like 17 years, you know, you're not making VP. So I think you go until you've ceilinged out.
And then I think, and I think then the other question that I have is, because I kind of went the route of like SDR, then I was the SDR manager, led a team of 6, and now I'm one of our enterprise AEs. And I've been with my company for a little under 4 years now. And it's something that I'm considering. Is it like you get to a point where you may want to go work at like a larger company? Like I'm in cyberspace, like would I want to go work for a Proofpoint or a Splunk, for instance, versus another no name as an AE?
If you want to be a VP of sales, why would you do that? You have no shot to go to a bigger company and be a VP of sales. Your shot is to continuously parachute yourself into the shit that nobody else wants to do. That's your shot.
Yeah. I guess my only argument back to that would be like, as far as like the clout of being able to put that on your resume, if you worked at X place for a point in time, like have you seen that help you at all, or credibility?
I'm glad you asked this question, because 10 years ago, I'm living in Santa Rosa, California, and I'm doing a little bit of consulting. I'm trying to figure out where I go next. And I get a job offer from a company called Main Street Hub, and I get a job offer from a company called Google. My parents are like, "Oh my God, you go work for Google." My brother, who's super successful, is like, "Holy shit, you can go work at Google." This is the middle of like Living Social, Groupon, Google Offers was their version of that. So Google wanted me to go work and build the Google Offers group out, right? And so I thought, just like you said, well, I should probably go work at this big company, because then my resume is minted and I can get whatever job I want. And then I had a conversation with a friend who was like, yeah, but like, isn't the Main Street Hub job the job that you want? And I'm like, well, fuck me. Yeah, he's actually right. I don't need that logo on my resume. I'm already getting the offers that I would want. I'm already getting the offer to go be the man and build everything myself. So what do I need that logo for? If your goal is to be a VP of sales, it makes no sense to build your kind of resume up and then go work for a big company and expect to become a VP of sales. It doesn't make sense. If you went from an SDR to an AE to a sales manager in this particular industry, right? You could leave that industry if you wanted as a sales manager, go earlier stage. At the very least, you start at a sales manager level and can build your way up, but you have a good shot to go in at a director level, a level up than where you were. At that place, you work there a couple of years. Now you have director level experience. If you have no path to VP there, you bounce. And when you bounce, do you go work at a director level gig at ForcePoint? No. You find an early stage startup that gives you a VP of sales title where you get to build something from scratch. This is the fastest path to VP of sales, Hayden. It's Scott, also, one second, John. It's also the road less traveled, because it's scarier. People are less likely to bet on themselves, right? And go to these scary early stage startups, and they get sucked into the idea of having this logo on their resume, and that will get me wherever I want to go. You're not going to be a VP of sales at one of those companies.
No, I think that's a good reminder. And I think like, 4 months ago or whatever, you did your one on like passive revenue streams, like rental properties and different things to be able to take on more risk because you're able, driving the Prius versus the BMW or whatever, living beneath your means. And so you're able to afford to take on that more risk. So no, that's a good reminder. Well said.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Go ahead, John.
About that risk, Scott, can you talk maybe about the difference in offers between Main Street Hub and Google? Because I'm sure Google had much more security and you took a risk betting on yourself going to Main Street Hub. I know I took ridiculous risks switching roles for things that I thought had better opportunity or equity. And maybe you tell people about like, the extreme risk and that you really have to bet on yourself when you go to these smaller companies, possibly for less salary and stuff like that.
Yeah, big risk. It was less money to go to Main Street Hub versus Google, less money in the near term. See, the thing about going to Google is that, I don't know if you know this about Google, but nobody in sales is a full-time employee. They're all contracted. And you can get your contract canceled at any point in time, right? They give you benefits and they pay all that kind of stuff, but you sign up for a contract like you're a pro athlete. Like this is a 1-year deal. So I was going to get paid a good amount of money, but it was like 1 year. There was no equity kind of component because Google doesn't respect the sales profession. They throw stock at engineers like you wouldn't believe. My brother has gotten millions of dollars offered in stock to go work at Google. They don't do that for sales. So Main Street Hub, I'd have to move to Austin, Texas, where I know nobody. I get less cash near term, but I get a large equity stake. Then you're selling an unknown product with an unknown logo versus selling a known logo with a known product, in the sense that it's the identical product to Living Social and Groupon, right? It's like already kind of proven. So this was a perfect example of like near-term cash grab versus long-term bet on myself and try to hit a home run or at least a double, right? So that was the consideration. And if you know the story, like Groupon, Living Social, Google Offers ends up crashing and almost disappearing after a couple of years, right? And I had a nearly $200 million exit from Main Street Hub, parlayed that into the gig I got at Outbound Engine, parlayed that into the gig I got at Qualia, right? But that was the risk. I had to uproot my whole life. My parents thought I was insane. Can't believe you're doing that type of thing. That was the right path for me. I suppose going to Google would be the right path for other people for different reasons. But for me, in my mindset and ultimately wanting to free myself from being a W-2 employee at some point in time, right? And ultimately having a goal and a desire and an ambition to, try to like generationally change the game. Like that was the way I was going to play the game. I wasn't going to play the game the safest way. I was going to take big risks, but I was going to do things like Hayden was talking about in terms of passive income and side hustle to de-risk as much as I could. John's company is a perfect example, by the way, of like an early stage company, right? He's proving product market fit right now. As soon as a couple deals, come in, you could say, okay, he's kind of ready to scale. Like John's figured out how to sell it a little bit, right? Now, you could go be a sales manager at a company like Force Point or Duo or whatever the other big players are. You're not going to get to the mountaintop there. They might pay you $125,000 salary, $250K OTE. Or you go work for somebody like John, who's a CEO building a new product. And John's going to be like, listen, I can't pay you, 400K OTE right now, but I can give you 1.5% of the company and give you a good cash offer, maybe not great, but like a good cash offer. And you have the ability to build something from scratch. You have the ability to make an impact, right? You close $1 million deal for John Stern's ring pen company, he'll probably tattoo your face on his leg. You close $1 million deal for Force Point, you are a line item in a spreadsheet. That means something to somebody like me. So I think you have to think about what type of person you are and what motivates you, and which one you care about more than the other, right? And I think what you hear from me all the time is like, I took a very entrepreneurial kind of approach to being a VP of sales and building a career out of it, and eventually trying to find a way to parachute myself out of the W-2 game. And that's one of the things that I try to help people and teach people about. I'm not out there like some other people posting every single day being like, quit your fucking job and be a creator and build this and build that. But to me, that's irresponsible. Not everybody is able to do that. What does make sense to me is get real good at what you do, diversify a little bit, continue to move up, bet on yourself, take a couple big hacks and big cuts and see if you can't get something special to change the game financially for yourself and your family. And then when the time is right, pull the ripcord and live a different life. That's the message that I try to preach to all of you and, my extended Thursday Night Sales family and all that kind of stuff. So
I love that answer, Scott, and how, moving to a city and a state, where no one, and like that job could be over in less than a year very easily for factors outside of your control. I just want people to realize the real risks that you have to do to sometimes make a name for yourself. Like Google, no matter what you did, you probably weren't going to make a huge name for yourself doing the Google offers or whatever it was called. But Main Street Hub, you can make a name for yourself and move up doing it at a smaller company.
Yeah. There's something to be said. And part of my mindset at the time was, I'm a nobody in San Francisco, and almost no matter what I do, I'll remain a nobody. But if I go to Austin, small town at the time, up and coming tech scene, I'm like, I can maybe be a big fish in a small pond here. And there's something to be said about that, right? But yeah, not without risk.
Just FYI, San Diego's still a small pond, Scott, so come on out.
Hey, that's where I'm headed next. Just give me a couple years to get my kids out of school.
I got a quick question, kind of tied to that whole thing. I'm a first time on any of this stuff, but really have enjoyed the conversation. I'm Jake.
Nice to meet you, Jake.
I took that bet on myself. So it's funny you're talking about Google. I quit my job at Google. They did give me full-time benefits and all that stuff. So I don't know what you're talking about, but
no, it's not that they don't give you full-time benefits. It's that this is also 10 years ago, by the way. So maybe
contractor employees and stuff. It's a huge thing at Google back in the day. And but anyway, I wasn't one of those, fortunately. But regardless, so I've been in sales 9 years, my whole career. Took a chance, moved to Texas. I live in Austin here, and so I started a company with my buddy. He's a developer. I'm a sales guy. I'm like, okay, the stuff you're building, I think I can sell it.
Yeah.
We just raised our seed, actually, $3 million. And it's all to hire engineers and stuff like that. And so now I'm in this mode of like, I've built a pretty strong pipeline myself, a few $1 million. And I've always was like, well, I can kind of run sales for as long as I need to. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, at some point I'll need to figure out that transition, and I'm kind of in this mode of like, when do I know? Clearly it's like, you got to get these deals flowing and stuff. But I think kind of tied to that question, it's like, when you came in, like, to those types of organizations, like what was the landscape like, or like kind of how do you tell companies to think about that? Because I'm thinking in my brain, like I can be sales lead for our company for a long time, but I don't know if that's actually the case. I just don't even know what the future will look like. Things have progressed much more rapidly than I expected.
So a couple things there. Your stage is literally the stage of like every company that I ever went to and was a VP of sales at, and is even right around the stage of where I do all my like advisory work.
Mhm.
So you it's accurate in my mind that you're like, you need to be the first one here to sell this thing. So you've built this pipeline. I think now the next phase is like, you need to close a couple deals. You need to knock them down. And then if you can, you should try to document like what you're doing and what's working. All this playbook stuff that I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Even to the point of like, what are our emails? What does our cold call script look like? What's a demo look like? All this kind of stuff. But I don't know your level of experience in have you been an individual contributor the whole time?
Yeah. That was, I mean, kind of tied to the questions before. It was, I was doing big corporate gig, and it's slow. It's a slog to move up the ranks. And so I was like, why don't I just take a chance on myself, like, and go for it. So
there's no rule that says you can't be the chief revenue officer from now until the end of time.
Yeah.
I think you want to know yourself and know your skill sets, right? And how much time and energy and effort do you want to devote to building out this playbook and process and hiring and interviewing all these people and managing these systems and integrating these tools, and like, you've been a rep. Imagine what it's like to manage 10 of you. Imagine what it's like to manage 50 versions of Jake and all Jake's emotions, right? Like, if that's how you want to spend your time, then so be it. Or you do kind of the first wave or two where like you're building pipeline, you close deals, maybe you participate and you hire a couple people and you see if you can get those people to be productive, right? But at some point, I think you're probably going to want to eject yourself from that process, because you're going to want to focus on, operations, fundraising, hiring a head of marketing, a head of customer success, all these other, you know what I mean? Like you'd move to more of like a chief business officer, a chief operations kind of officer.
Yeah.
That's more common. And you hire somebody who's been there and done that and led and grown sales teams, right? Either to be your head of sales or to kind of guide you, along the way and help you bring in somebody who's either been there and done that before, or bring in like an up and comer, right? Like some of the people from this group right here who've like led and managed teams before, but they're, maybe a first time VP of sales or something like that. And there's advantages and disadvantages to that. But, the beautiful thing is that you bet on yourself, and you're way farther along than a lot of other people who have done similar thing, right? You got a good combo. They say the best co-founder combo is one engineer and one salesperson.
Yeah. I was surprised that VCs never see that. I mean, we just got through this slog. I think I talked to about 150 VCs. It's a beat down.
The VCs are so brutal.
Yeah.
But it worked. The point is it worked.
It worked. Yeah.
The point is it worked, right? And 150 conversations to nab $3 million is a pretty good hit rate, right? Yeah. And so now, think long and hard about like what you want your role to look like over the next 6 months, over the next 12 months, over the next 36 months, right?
Yeah.
And one of the smartest things you can do as a founder or as a leader in any kind is like get the fuck out of the way and let smart people, do what they do best, right? And support and enable them and delegate like crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think, given your experience in sales, like I think it's very realistic for you You've built pipeline, close some deals, prove it out.
Yeah.
Maybe hire a couple people or get some help hiring a couple people. Document all your process and playbook and all this kind of stuff. See if you can't get those people to be productive. And if you've been able to do that, like that's an inflection point where you should probably go from, you know, a couple people to like a dozen. And do you want to be the person running sales when there's a dozen people? And you have to answer that for yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Anybody-
Scott, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm more on the customer success account management side of the business, and I'm starting to look at VP jobs at that level. For, you know, renewals, I can handle renewals. I do customer success. I've also done new business. But when you're talking to somebody coming into roles as the VP of sales, kind of what kind of questions would you ask me that I should be prepared for? Like I have your how to be a VP of sales, and I'm going to tweak that to be how to be a VP of account management.
Oh my gosh.
But
I would love to help you write that, that post or that whatever, that manifesto. Yeah. Okay. So do you mean this from the vantage point of like, I'm the VP of sales and you're coming in to interview for a VP of customer success role?
Yes.
Okay. How do I begin? Okay. I want to know things like, where does your job begin in your mind? There's a lot of people, sales leaders, who think that, you know, sales reps should close a deal and be responsible for the upsell revenue.
Mhm.
So I would want to know, do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? I personally disagree with it, but I would want to know where you stand on there as I'm trying to suss out our potential working relationship, right?
Yep.
It's very important to me as a VP of sales that my customer success team be like sales team 2.0 and not like Nordstrom's customer service. Okay. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I'm trying to optimize for a VP of customer success that has sales DNA, who's thinking about upsells, cross sells, renewals, referrals, all these kind of things, right? I also am trying to optimize for somebody that will have a team that is highly communicative with sales. I bet you've been in a place, Val, where the sales team and the CS team are not allowed to talk to each other.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Politics. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not into that personally.
Yeah.
I think it's very important and vital for you and I, if we're the VPs, to have a really good relationship, right? When you tell me like, hey, I'm getting feedback that some of your salespeople are doing this, I take action on it. And you know, we go back and forth with each other. When I say to you, hey, I got a couple of reps who are upset because some of these clients are trying to cancel and they don't feel like your team saved them. Like, we got to have a good relationship to have that kind of dialogue. And I want your account managers and my salespeople to be able to talk to each other and have conversation and work this kind of stuff out. That doesn't happen in a lot of companies. It's like, nope, nobody's allowed to talk other than Scott and Val.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for that. I want to know how you see the evolution of your department. So walk me through how that team scales. I got 10 customers right now. What does your team look like when I got 50? What does your team look like when I have 500 customers? Do you have sort of generalists, or do you silo people out into retention, service, revenue? Now talk to me about customer success operations. How does that work? Are you going to build all that stuff yourself? How do you think about tools on the customer success side? What stack do you want to use over there, if any? Things like that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Now I want to know what your list and questions is. I'm gonna message you offline.
So I better start working on it tonight then, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna Val. You and I can write a little ebook together.
Well, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we'll call it like something to do with like VP of Sales and VP of CS, the dynamic, what to look for in each other.
Yeah, the kumbaya sessions, right?
There you go. Yeah. Anybody else got questions on this stuff?
One more comment, Scott, based on all your posts and what you talked about on last Thursday night sales, or maybe 2 Thursday night sales about the cold call coaching club, this VP of sales stuff isn't always what it's cracked up to be. And usually your top people earn more than you and stuff like that. And you're like, man, I could have been that individual contributor. What do you think about like people's whys of why they would want to be a VP of sales, or why someone might not want to be a VP of sales and all that type of stuff?
Well, your why for being one, I choose my words carefully. My why for being one is I love building stuff from scratch. I love building and kind of leading a team. I'm very passionate about trying to, kind of mentor and help people get to where it is that they want to go. It's actually more motivating to me to give people an opportunity that they've never had before and help them get there. So just that kind of like helping others, I don't know, people would say servant leadership type of thing. Like for me, that's a big part of it. And the last piece is like straight selfish, like straight cash, homie. Like this is the only way, other than being an entrepreneur like you and Jake, this is the only way for me to hit some kind of home run, was to get into this executive level game. And I felt like if I did it enough times, I'd eventually, get it right, and I had a couple kind of singles and doubles as exits. And I got a home run that's coming. So financially, that's what made sense, because yeah, you can make more money as an individual contributor for a while. You're not making fuck you money as an individual contributor. It ain't happening anywhere. I don't care who you work for. It's not happening. But you can as a VP of sales, you can as a VP of customer success. You get a 0.5 point to 1 point as a VP of customer success in a $1 billion plus company. Val's changing the game for her family for a generation. You're not doing that as an individual contributor. So to me, that's why. Why not? You are the first person to get fired if anything goes wrong every single time. You get all the blame, all the smoke. You get very little pats on the back. You are expected to turn water into wine at all times. You may not know it, but you, not the head of HR, you are actually the chief psychotherapist of the company. And you're doing therapy all day long, all the time. So you get to listen to everybody's problems and all of their stress. You will work really long hours for a long period of time. You'll be under incredible pressure and incredible stress. Congratulations, you hit your number, Carolyn. Unfortunately, in 6 hours, it's the first of the month and your stress gets to start all over again. You are no longer in control of your paycheck. Your paycheck is determined by the performance of everybody else. So there's an extreme loss of control there. You will realize very quickly that not everybody cares as much as you do about excelling, about getting better at their craft, about making a certain amount of money, about changing their life. You have a short life expectancy, so you're going to have to get comfortable with change. The average tenure for a VP of sales is down to 16 months, 15 or 16 months now, I think. That means you're changing jobs every year and a half, not even a year and a half. You know, that's a lot of instability for some people. You know, every place I went, I was there for like 2.5, 3 years or so. That's more than double normal. And, you know, I got people that I'm friends with who are like, I can't believe you change jobs like every couple of years. I can never do that, you know? So a lot of reasons not to do it, you know, as well.
Scott, I think for some people, you know, similar to myself, there may be, you know, not as long as far along in their career as, you know, to try to make that jump into that sales VP or that first time. You know, can you talk to when you were an account executive and you felt like you were getting railroaded when you made that jump to your first time being a director or first time being a manager? I know that would benefit me at least.
Well, I don't know so first of all, if you haven't read it yet, Ryan Walker and I wrote a book in January called From Rep to Manager that people should check out. It's all about what to think about in making the transition and how to kind of nail that transition. What I thought about was I'm kind of bored with being an individual contributor. I have this kind of sorted out. Like I could be number one, number two on the floor, but I don't feel fulfilled. And I actually am having more fun, like trying to help some of these new people close deals and teach them what's working for me. And my sales manager hasn't really taught me anything. So I definitely think I'm better than that person. So that was my motivation to go be a sales manager, right? Then as a sales manager, you know, I was able to move to a senior sales manager, but then I ceilinged out. You know, I was a senior sales manager leading a team of like 70, 2 different offices of about 35 people or so. And I remember asking my boss and my founder, hey, what do I got to do here to become a VP of sales? And the answer was cold-blooded, it ain't happening. I said, well, how come? Like, I was employee of the year. I was sales manager of the year. Like, by all accounts and purposes, you all value me like a ton. The answer is you don't have enough experience. You never been a VP of sales before. You don't have the experience to do it. So at that point, I was like, well, I hit the ceiling. For me personally, I don't stick around if I've hit the ceiling. So that was writing on the wall, like, oh, I got to go. I got to go somewhere else where I can go bigger. So I found a role that hired me as a director. So this is what I'm talking about, Hayden. I went super early. So rather than being a senior sales manager and going to work for some big company as a senior sales manager, I decided to go early, super early, because they'd give me a director role. And they gave me a goal. If you hit this, you become a VP. Now, they didn't tell me I'd be a VP forever and they'd never hire above me. They just said, if you do this, you'll become VP. So I thought, okay, I can do that. That'll take me about 6 to 12 months. So I did it. So I was only a director for like 6 to 12 months. Can't remember the exact date. Then I got my first VP of sales gig. So that was the thought process all the time. I was there. I was a VP of sales. I had no equity that first time. None. I asked for equity. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. So now you know me. You know my personality. What do you think I said? Daniel Ryan got it right. I said, adios. Now I go get another VP of sales job. My base salary goes up. My OTE goes up. I get a little bit of equity, right? That same model is what I followed. Did I answer your question, Hayden?
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I think some instances, I think it's going to be more blatant as far as if you know you've hit your ceiling than others, but no, that's definitely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to figure out if you've hit your ceiling is to ask your boss, how do I move to this particular level? tell me the exact things that you need me to do. And some of them might be just straight up with you, like, listen, no, not happening. Well, now I know I've hit my ceiling, right? Some of them might give you goals and targets that are just like wildly unattainable. And you know that, come on, that ain't happening, right? Some of them might give you something that's super realistic and super attainable. That would tell me that there is an opportunity to stick around there. But I think you got to have that conversation. You know, you got to find out, and most people dance around the conversation. They dance around it.
Yeah, avoiding conflict. No, I agree.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I got time for maybe one, maybe two more if they're short. Anybody?
Scott, I got a question.
I can't tell where it's coming from.
Travis.
Oh, you're not on camera. All right. What's up, Travis?
Sorry, man, I'm not on camera. Hey, how old were you when you made your first jump to director?
I was 29.
29.
29, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I got my first ever sales job, entry level at 27, and I was a VP at 30.
Okay. I'm on a kind of a similar path to you. I was a regional sales manager. I had about 300 employees. I did like the 50 million to 100 million. And I jumped backwards I jumped to a director title, but smaller organization. I've been here for about 2 years, and now I'm looking to make a jump to the VP. So the transition for me is really where to get started, and sometimes industry too. Like a lot of people look at experience and they want quick revenue, quick relationships. They want you to be able to build fast. So finding the right opportunity, like how do you go about finding the right opportunity and someone that'll kind of take a chance on you?
Yeah, I mean, that to me is all about the power and size of your network and your relationships. That is why, not likes and influencer status and all this kind of stuff, all the reasons people brand build online. Like, you grow the size of your network to get access to more opportunities. People bring you opportunities. So if you're connected to 500 of them on LinkedIn, you're fishing in a small pond. If you're connected to 30,000 of them on LinkedIn, now you got the ocean. You show up to communities like this, like Thursday Night Sales, Rev Genius, Revenue Collective, all these different things that are out there. You go to some events, you network the hell of it, and you be direct, and you form relationships with people who've been where you want to go and who might be willing to help you get where it is you want to go. Right? So, you and I continue the dialogue and the conversation, right? Travis, like, now I know, like, okay, Travis has been a director for a couple of years and he's like looking for his first shot at a VP of sales gig. Like, I got a couple of those gigs at any given time that I can throw your name in the ring for. And if I throw your name in the ring, like, you're getting a call. You might not get the job, but you're going to get a phone call just based on me putting my, stamp on your resume. So that's cutting the line right there. So you do that at scale, meaning not just me, you do that with like 10, 20, 50 versions of me. That's where the opportunities come. And we start to put you in front of people who are not going to be like, well, Travis, I don't think you're right for this opportunity because you have no experience in the, medical field. You find founders who optimize for sales acumen, for building of teams, for growth and scale, and you avoid founders who are optimizing for industry expertise. That's the best answer I can give you.
No, that's a great answer.
So you think about where you are now with that stuff, and you 2 to 3x to 5x, 10x your efforts, depending on how eager you are to get the hell out of Dodge and get to that next place.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, just getting in front of people, right, and getting someone to maybe look past, even if it's experience. Sometimes like if they look at like my most recent experience, it's a smaller startup foundation.
Yeah.
And they won't apply my older experience with 300 employees and taking 30 brick and mortars or 18 brick and mortars to 30. So it kind of gets caught up in
I get it.
You get a stamp from someone.
I get it. Listen, I couldn't even tell you how many times I got passed over for enterprise sales, VP enterprise sales roles because I'd never built an enterprise sales team before. So many times I get passed over all the time. I have a friend who's now he wasn't at the time. He's now my partner in surf and sales. His name is Jeff Coleman. Jeff co-founds a company that gets funded by a venture capital firm called 8VC. Formation 8 is what it was called at the time. Formation 8 invests in a company called Qualia. This company, Qualia, goes to Formation 8 and says, we could use some help, with sales. Who should we talk to? Formation 8 messages their portfolio of companies. My buddy Jeff replies to Formation 8 and is like, hey, my good friend Scott is a sales leader. Intros me to Formation 8. I chat with Formation 8. Formation 8 intros me to Qualia. I do a quick little consulting gig for Qualia. I end up going to work there as a VP of sales. The rest is history, as they say. So, same boat as you, passed over, skipped over, overlooked because I don't have this industry experience. I don't have this type of sale experience, right? And I'm trying to I'm doing everything I can in these interviews. I'm like, listen, you can hire somebody who has done, or you can hire somebody who can do. Like, the first person who gives me a shot is going to hit a fucking home run.
100%.
Whatever. I got told no. I got told no. I got told no until I leveraged a relationship to get my foot in the door. And then they gave me, the shot. So I think that's what I would tell you to do.
It's great advice.
Sorry, Travis, let me jump in here because Scott won't say it. For anybody here that wants to be a VP of sales, you're in the right spot. There's literally no one better in technology than Scott Lees to hook you up or has a network to get you. You think like all these companies that get funding don't come to Scott and say, do you know somebody or something like that? So like I was like you, Travis. I did a great job what I was doing, but I never worked on like expanding my network outside of locally here in San Diego. No one knew me. I wouldn't get a job that I was capable of doing. Scott put me up in there. I got the offer, ended up I didn't want to, work out or whatever, but like he put my name in, I jumped the line. I could handle the interview and getting the job part of it, but I would have never gotten that opportunity if I hadn't developed that relationship with Scott. So like if you want a VP of sales job, if anyone wants this, I consider Scott like Greg Popovich, and the rest of us are all, in his harem, and he's coaching us up to go be VPs in sales out there.
I like that.
So, if that's what you're trying to do, you're in the right spot, talking to the right people, and there's probably no one else better, literally, in the world at getting like a technology SaaS VP of sales opportunity. I'll go back on me.
Thanks, John. Thanks. All right, I got to get going, but Jeff Croker, I saw you snuck in that you have a question. So we'll make this the last one and then I got to wrap.
Thanks, Scott. I apologize if this is not a short answer, because we can certainly table it for the next Tequila Tuesday. If you say, whoa, dude, why'd you lay that on me now? And not
oh, shit. Okay.
So,
I reserve the right to punt until next week, Jeff.
Yeah. And so question for you, in your any of the positions that you've taken on in your when you've said you've come in and basically been a longest, what was it, 3 years is the longest?
3 years, 1 month.
Yeah. So out of any of those roles, obviously you got some equity in some of those. You got a piece of the pie, or at least an opportunity to make some good money. in that role. Did you get into it? Obviously, kind of going back to one of the very first questions about, asking A, B, and C, and you're not going to get the truth, or they're not going to share with you 100%. And they're not going to open their kimono with you. Did you go into any of those roles and discover things once you were in the role that you're like, oh man, I don't know if I signed up for this, or this is this is a shit show, or I got a lot of my work cut out for me. Did you ever get to the point where you said, do I cut bait now and go pursue another option? And if you did, what was that thought process like, or the motion of going through that exercise?
Yeah. First of all, I thought that every place I've ever been, every single one, I've been like, holy crap, this is a shit show. I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. Every single time, full on panic, imposter syndrome, self-doubt kind of moments. Okay. Now, I have one blip on my resume. I was at a place for 8 months before I pulled the ripcord and was like, it ain't happening. I didn't do a good job of vetting the founder. I didn't do a good job of vetting his goals and aspirations with the company. I didn't do a good job of vetting how much authority and autonomy I would have. I did a lousy job vetting the whole thing, to be honest with you. The product ended up not being ready. They sold it to me as being ready. And after 8 months, it still wasn't ready. So my team and I had like closed deals, and the company wouldn't ship the product because the product was buggy and they didn't want to like burn their, reputation. I'm like, I just sold this shit that you told me to do. If you don't ship the product, the reputation is burnt already anyway. So after, 8 months worth of mucking around and doing absolutely nothing, I finally was like, I got to get out of here. And I probably, in hindsight, waited 3 months longer than I should have. Yeah. So I pulled the ripcord, and I remember being fearful that like, oh, I just ruined my career and doomed myself because now I have this like short stint on my resume. And that's not what happened. That job that I quit was the one right before I had to choose between Main Street Hub and Google. They didn't care. I explained the story to them. I was like, I fucked up. I didn't do a good job of vetting it. I didn't vet this. I didn't vet that. I didn't vet this other thing. I'm not going to make that mistake again. So by the way, I'm going to ask you all these questions so I don't make the same mistake. Right? So yes, it happened. It sucked. But I didn't shank anymore after that.
It was a great learning opportunity, huh?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully this was helpful. If you got any more questions, message me, through any of the channels that are open to you all. And I think I'll be able to do one next week. I'll try to get it on the calendar a little earlier. So maybe more people can join us and chat soon. Maybe I'll see some of you Thursday night.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Scott. Great job.